Hey guys, hope you're well and doing fine. Welcome back to Crafty Quilting Designs. Today we're going to continue with our Scrappy Quilt series. Today is episode 2, so let me tell you what we'll be doing today. So I've completed all of my blocks, or I should say my squares. Alright, and I went ahead and did 20 blocks in total. I haven't made them up, but when I worked it out, I did 20. Now if you wanted to do 16 instead and stop there, that's fine. So it'll be a lovely throw size. I think the 20 makes it a large quilt, very large quilt. And so we're going to stitch them together today, but first of all we're going to lay them out. All right, and play with the color pattern and get the formation right. Now I know already, and you know this, that we get an X once we put the blocks together, and we also get a square. All right, not sure what else we actually get in there, because I love actually moving it around and see what other sort of shapes and patterns etc we get out of the quilt. And when you stand back, you can actually see all these things jumping back at you. So that's what we're going to do, and then we're going to stitch them together. So those are our two objectives. All right, one, stitch them together. Sorry, one, lay them out, then stitch them together. All right, so when I say stitch them together, I mean all of our four squares. We will put them together to see what they actually look like. And now this is a white in the middle. I know you can't see very well because the light is directly on it. So some of them, a lot of the colors sort of repeated, which is good, because as much as it's a scrappy quilt, I still want all of the colors to complement each other. So things like this is a blue in the middle with the black on the end, which is dots of red and reds at the corners. So I hope your experience went well with it. Now when I said about some of the colors really throughout the quilt, this one in the middle here, I would say is a lot of those. When I say a lot, probably about 6 or 8. Could be less, could be more. All right, and yeah, so that's what I did. So I went through all of my scraps, got my bits and stitched them together. Now let me show you what my squares look like, and then we can start playing with them and see what we get out of it. Okay guys, so look at all of these beautiful squares. They look really great actually. I love the colors all together. So we're going to lay them all out and see how we can get this beautiful quilt going. So remember, I talked about some of the patterns that was repeated, so you can see them there. Yeah, it's another one there, there's another one there, but that's fine because that's what a scraps quilt is all about, you know, getting similar colors and fabric repeated throughout the quilt, and that's what makes it unique and very creative. So don't be afraid to do that with yours. Yeah, again, it makes it personal to you, because remember, all of these quilts, all of these patterns, or sorry, not patterns, but you know, the fabric will have memory attached to them, whether it was something you were hoarding or whether it was something you were keeping for a special moment, or you know, so whatever reasons, it actually helps to bring it all together and create so much memories when you do a scrap quilt. So let's get this all laid out and then stitched together, and then we will see where we go from there. I had considered the idea of using a border, but I wasn't sure about that, but we'll discuss that and see where we get on. Okay, so let's lay them out now. Alright guys, so let's place all of these out and see what we get. So I'm just going to put them down. Now remember, I am actually laying them out with these corners here first to give me a pattern, and I'll bring the camera closer up so you can actually see what I'm doing once I have laid them all out. So I'm just going to continue there. I started in the corner over there, but I'll just continue, lay them all out and see what we get and what it actually looks like. So, and then we will stitch them together. So I'm just going to keep turning as I go, and then I will swap things around if I'm not happy with it. For now, I'm just going to go with that. No. No, 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 not happy with that. Let's try this one and see, because I don't want to put white next to white. Okay, loving that one. That one is A-okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do is continue laying this all out, and then I will show you what I've actually come up with, and then we will move some things around before we start stitching them together, because I can already see similar patterns quite close to each other. Alright, so let me do this and then I will come right back to you. Okay guys, so I have laid out all of these squares. Now, what I just wanted to say really is that there's few things to be mindful of when you are laying yours out. It's 54 squares in total, and obviously I said it's 20 blocks. Okay, so it looks really nice and it's very colorful. There are some movement I need to make and changes I need to do to change certain squares around. So for example, this one in the corner here has got too much white together, so I'm going to move that around. And another thing as well that you need to remember when you lay yours out is that there are certain points that need to sit together. So for example, I'm going to show you a good one and then I'll show you a one that's incorrect. So when I lay the blocks out, I look for this pattern first. Let's see if I can get right on it. This particular pattern first. So I put the shorter side of the half square triangle together to make that pattern in the middle there. And from that, what you get with your joining block is the square there. All right, so what you need to check for is that each one is turned correctly. So like this one here is turned correctly so that all the short triangles are together. And you see what I mean about swapping the blocks around. So these two are sitting next to each other, plus there's one right here and right there. And yes, they do form a nice block together, so I could just leave it like that. This one here is a nice block together as well, and this one here you get the actual square in the middle. But if you look at it carefully, you can actually see it's laid out wrong. So this one here is the proper triangle there, proper triangle there. But this one here is the shorter triangle. So ideally, this block should be faced this way. So that's the way it should be faced really, so that you can actually see it. So then you can see that there is that diamond in the middle there. All right, so that's what you need to look for once you've laid them out. So I think I've seen another one over here somewhere. I'm sure of it. Now it's very tricky with the eyes because there's so many colors coming back at you. So you just need to take your time and do this. I wouldn't rush this because the likelihood of you picking it up as it is incorrectly, you will. Now I've spotted another one there again. So that's the half square triangle and that's the smaller cut. So ideally this should be turned this way. All right, so it was like this before incorrectly, and it should be because the method I've used is to lay all of the smaller triangles out first. All right, and again alongside it, again it's the same thing, should be turned this way. So just keep turning it until you get it right. So if you're turning it, it should be correct there, and it should be correct on the bottom as well. And again, look at that, spotted another one, so it should be turned this way. All right, so that is the problem we sort of have. So you need to keep looking and checking. I did stitch one together as a sample, and there it is. So let me isolate it on its own so you can actually see it properly. So that is the actual block there on its own. So I'm going to remove these ones here just so that you can see it entirely. So that's the block there. So this is, so make a block up so that you know exactly what you need to look for. All right, and you can play around with the color scheme as I have done here. And I put the two houses together, and I've put these two similar colors together to make that beautiful X there in the middle. So what I would advise to do is to make each block individually. So I'll say lay it out, then pick it up and take your block. So for example, this one here is also a nice block in the middle there. You can clearly see the X. So make your blocks and then pick them up and stitch them together. And I think once you've done that, that is when you could just simply move them around and lay it out. So for example, if I wanted just to make all white, so like this one, just do a whole block of white there, I can do that, or even in with this one here as well. Okay, so that's some ideas for you to work with. So I will say make the blocks up first, and then we can lay them out, and then that way we would know. Now the other thing I was playing along with in my mind, and I think I've mentioned it before, was whether we need a sashing in between or a border or inner borders. Now as it is, as I said, it's 54. Once we stitched it together, we could see how big we want to keep going with this. So I love big quilts, I really do. I've fallen in love with big quilts, so it's not a problem for me. But if you want to stop at 20, or you want to stop at 16 and just do a lap size, it's fine. Or if you wanted to do sashing alongside it, that's fine. All right, so I would say let's get the block stitched together, play along with whatever you want in terms of how you want to lay it out. So if you wanted to lay it out with the square first, go right ahead. You will still get the secondary pattern of the X. All right, so you get both of them. Okay, so is it up to you which one you want to start first, really? All right, so the square in the middle, that's the X in the middle there, or the square. So it's entirely down to you what exactly you're looking for. So let's play around, have some fun, and then we shall stitch them together, and then we can discuss, or I can play around as to whether or not I want to add some sashing. So I can probably get some sashings out and just, you know, lay it, because I do have some strips of fabric, so I can just lay in between and see what they look like, and then we can just do a comparison and see what we think. All right, and then you can let me know what you think, and if you're going to go along with that as well. Another thing I just noticed, a little of these brown here, I also need to move those around. So there are a lot of them, because I really wanted to get rid of that fabric. So there is quite a few bit of that 4-inch square dotted around. Same with this particular pattern here. So it's these ones here, you know. So yeah. So yeah, okay guys, so let's get cracking with that, and we will stitch them together and see what they look like. Okay, so we're going to sew the blocks together, and what I have actually done is put mine on the machine next to me. Now I'm going to align them again so that I pick them up correctly, even though I know I did, but I'm going to make sure that I put the block together. So remember, if you put it like this, if you lay it like this, you are going to get that diamond square in the middle, but that's not what we're going for initially. All right, this is going to be our secondary pattern. So our first pattern within the squares is this Grecian block, or if you want to call it, this particular Greek cross, and you can actually see it there. So if I didn't remind you before, because I know I mentioned it when I did the sneak peek, that you get the Grecian cross in the middle. So you get a Grecian cross there, and you get an X forming, and you also get the third or the secondary pattern, that you get the diamond square within the blocks. All right, now to remember how to sew this together, it's front sides together, and you line it up quite easily. Now there's no need to pin the blocks, or the squares in this case. There's no need to pin, and you sew. So I'm going to fold this as well, front sides together, so I know when I take it across, it's already aligned correctly, and I'm going to leave that there in that position. And I'm going to go ahead now and line this up, and again it's a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to sew. So again, we don't need to back stitch, and I'm going to cut that off. Right, so what I'm going to do now is just swap them around so that I do not get them mixed up. Now just notice in my squares here at the moment, they're all lined up correctly. If I put them together, I can see that it's all lined up correctly here, which tells me that I correctly trimmed my squares down to 6 1/4. So this is what you just need to be mindful of. Okay, so let me just stitch now. Again, down, 1/4 inch seam all the way down, no need to back stitch. Now what you also need to remember is that there are no matching seams. Well, tell a lie, there is. There's only one particular matching seams when you put this block together, and that is putting the block together like this. All right, so remember, this is the incorrect way. I'm just telling you what I think that you should be mindful of. So remember, if you see this pattern, this is the square, the square on point, but we're going to turn it around because we want the Grecian block in the middle initially. That's what we're going for. We're going for the Grecian block with the X. All right, so again, front sides together, and these are the seams that I'm talking about. So we only nest in these particular seams. Okay, so remember, the squares are not going to lay flat because at this stage we haven't added any steam. All we've done is just given a warm iron so that the squares themselves are just nice and neat. All right, so I'm going to flip this over, and again you can see everything is lined up equally there, and on this one as well, nice and equal. And again, under 1/4 inch seam, and so the block themselves form very quickly. It doesn't take long at all. It's very quick putting together. I'm just going to pause it there and make sure the bottom there is aligned, and continue. Cut my thread, and this is my block. So the block is made very nice and easy, and as you can see right in the center there, those points meet very nicely, all at the edges there. Everything lines up very beautifully, so ensure that you have accurately trimmed down your squares into that 6 1/4 inch. So this is our blocks. So we need 20 of these, and in total you would need 54 squares to make up your 20 blocks. Now we're going to press it. So we're going to press from the back first, then the front, and we're going to add steam. So let's go over to the ironing board and do that now. All right, so here is my block that we just made, and I'm going to start from the back, and I'm going to just press those seams down so they lay nice and flat, and that's our objective here. Just stretch it down, sorry, press it down so it's nice and flat. That's it. and then we're going to turn it over, and now we're going to smoothen it out, making sure that that block is nice and flat, and then we're going to add our steel. That's it. So as you can see, the block is not distorted, it is evenly squared, and we have our beautiful pattern in the middle, and that is what we were aiming for. So okay, so this is what you need to do to your blocks. Now what I would say while I'm at this board here is that we're going to trim this up to 11 inches squared. And to be honest, this block is absolutely perfect. It doesn't need any trimming at all. So remember, this is 11 and a half inch squared ruler, and that is what our block size works out to be, because all of our squares was 6 1/4. All right, so if your block is slightly bigger, okay, would mean two things, i.e. your seam allowance was not the normal seam allowance in terms of the size, it was slightly bigger or smaller I should say, and therefore your block turns out to be bigger. If your seam allowance was bigger, it means then probably that your blocks themselves weren't cut correctly initially, or all of your piecing. So that would probably most likely mean that you did not square your blocks down, your individual squares down to 6 1/4. All right, but either way, whatever block you have, finished block size, as long as all of them are consistent, that's the key here. So whatever you've end up with, make sure that your finished block size is a consistent size of all of your blocks. So in this particular case, all of my blocks has measured down to 11 1/2 square, and as you can see for yourself, there is nothing at the edges, it's all nice and even. Okay, so get your blocks up to this stage, and our next lesson tutorial, episode 3, we shall start to stitch all of these blocks together, and we'll have a little discussion about borders, because I have mentioned that, and we can then go through what we need to do if we are going to add borders. All right, so don't forget to like and subscribe, and happy quilting, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.